Hey guys, Tammy here. And in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 ways to resolve conflict about court orders. Now, many times we have court orders in place, but the two parties disagree with how to interpret them, right? Around what they mean. And I especially see this around issues like vacation time and holiday time and all of that kind of coordination when the schedule changes, right? People get really confused about how to interpret those orders. And one of the things that I see judges look at a lot is like, okay, what was the intent? What were we trying to accomplish with this? But sometimes it's stuff that the court handed down that you didn't necessarily come to agreement on, but the court set, but now you are confused on what does this even mean? And does it overlap and does it not? And, should it be a different day? And do I get makeup time? And all the things that come up with this. Because it's like, well, I see it one way, you see it another. So what do we do in that circumstance? Before we talk about that, let me just remind you, if you like my content and you find the videos helpful, don't forget to hit like on this video. And also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps more people find me, helps get my videos out there. So I really need your help with that if you can do that for me. And also, as always, please feel free to share this on social media. Now, when we're having conflict over interpretation, the main fallback is you go into court, right? And you ask them to resolve the issue. But that's not really very practical most of the time, because a lot of times when we're having these type of issues, it's around a holiday or a vacation time or something like that. And honestly, a lot of times you don't even have time to get in front of the court before that date's going to pass you by anyway. If you're having an argument on December 10th about what the Christmas schedule is going to be on December 24th, well, you probably can't even get in front of a judge in 14 days to even resolve that if you even wanted to do it in that way. Okay. But that's not very practical for small issues, right? The court is kind of a big picture. They kind of deal with big rocks, right? They don't get into the little nitty gritty details of the day to day as much. So it is a really blunt instrument to try to use to resolve an issue of this nature. Okay. Now, the very first thing that you can do, and this is probably pretty obvious for most of us, but really you could just give in. You could decide, you know what? I'm just going to keep the peace. This is not worth arguing about. This is not really going to disrupt my life in any major way, whether the child comes back at 10 o'clock tonight, 10 o'clock tomorrow, 8 a.m. the next day, whatever. It's not that big a deal. I'm just not going to argue. And sometimes that's a good strategy depending on the situation. One of the things it can do with a narcissistic person is they tend to kind of have the whole camel in a tent routine where they just go a little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit. So you give up a little bit on this negotiation on this holiday, the next holiday, they'll try to push it a little bit further. Then they'll try to push it a little bit further. Because I think a lot of times they do understand the order and they do know. They just try to twist it to fit their own agenda, whatever their agenda is in that moment. So right now they may say, oh, it's interpreted this way. And then the next time when it doesn't benefit them, they'll say, oh, no, I think it's interpreted this way. That's always one strategy, but it's not always a great strategy. The second thing that I think is kind of one of the more practical ways to do it is, look, you just have to learn how to negotiate with a narcissist. And this is a technique. It is something to be learned. And there are a lot of different things that work and don't work. And I can tell you the first thing that doesn't work is really engaging in the emotional aspect of this. Because most people get bogged down in the argument. Okay. Well, I think it should be 10 a.m. on Sunday. Well, no, I think it should be, 8 p.m. on Sunday. Whatever the issue is, that's where most people get bogged down. And one of the things you can do is say, look, I don't agree with your interpretation of the order, but here's 2 ways we could potentially solve it. Okay. And lay out 2 ways and lay them out very specifically. Think about the 2 potential options that you want to suggest. And when you do that, you're kind of shifting the conversation into solution mode, because then they're going to come back and at least say, well, no, I can't do this time, or I can't do, or it doesn't work because I have this event going on, or whatever, as opposed to just going back and forth over, no, it means this, no, it means that, no, it means this, no, it means that. And it's like, once you start getting more information, like, well, that won't work because my event's at 3 o'clock. Okay, now we can start to figure out what might work. And so then you can say, like, look, I don't agree with your interpretation of the order, but I understand you have this event going on that you really want to take the child to. So I'm, agreeable to make an exception to the court order. What if we did it this way, or possibly this way? Let me know your thoughts. There's a very specific reason I'm telling you to lay out two options, and that is because with a narcissistic person, you want to make them feel like they're in control of the situation. They don't like other people being in control usually. And so they're going to want to feel like they're making the choice. I always liken this to having a toddler, and they always tell you lay two outfits out for them and let them choose from those two outfits, right? And that way they have two practical, appropriate outfits for the outing or the day or whatever. And they're not picking, a sweater in the middle of 90-degree summer or whatever the thing is, because you've laid out two outfits that are appropriate, but because they get the choice, they feel like they're in control. And that's really what this theory comes from. And it works very, very nicely most of the time with a narcissist. And like I said, it will at least usually get them to engage and get you some information on what's the problem. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? Because just going back and forth on what the order is or isn't doesn't really bring you to solution. It's interesting because my late husband Thomas, who was an attorney, family law attorney, if you don't know and you're not familiar, he went through mediation training here in San Diego at one point very early on in our process, about 17, 18 years ago. And when he went through the training, one of the exercises they gave them was, I'm going to give you an orange. They paired them up in pairs, and they said, I'm going to give you an orange, and you have to reach agreement on how to divide the orange. And what they didn't tell the opposing party was, they told one party, you just need the peel of the orange, and the other told the other party, you just need the inside of the orange. But the other person didn't know that in this exercise. And so it was to kind of show you how you can get bogged down with, no, I want half the orange, no, or I need the whole orange and you should give it to me because of this, and no, I want the whole orange because you should give it to me because of that. When you can really look at that and go, oh my gosh, you need the peel, you need the inside. Well, we can make that work for both of us. But you have to get down to the root of the conversation of, like, why is it that you need this thing, or what is the problem? What is the thing we're trying to overcome, instead of just having that surface conversation? Because if you stay in that surface level and you're just having the argument, you never get down to an actual practical solution. Okay. So I would invite you to get very solution focused on, how do we resolve this? Let's brainstorm. I mean, maybe you're doing it one-sided. Maybe you get this thing and you're like, okay, what are all the ways we could solve this? And you pull out your whiteboard and you write on it all the different, or your computer or whatever it is for you, and you write down all the different solutions that could possibly exist for this particular thing, and then pick your two best. And then those are the two that you give to the other person, right? So again, getting very solution focused and not argument focused. Okay. So one is just give in. Two is learn to negotiate better by using some of these types of techniques. And the third thing is, one thing that you can do is you can have a parenting coordinator. And, this is something that's usually ordered by the court, that you use a parenting coordinator and both parties participate. And you essentially go to this person anytime that you're having conflict over some issue that you can't resolve. It can be costly. Obviously, it's not free, and usually you guys have to split the cost of it. But comparatively to going to court, it can save you tons and tons of money. Now, you do have to be selective in who you choose, because obviously this person's going to be making decisions about your children if the two of you can't reach agreement. So you kind of want to make sure it's somebody that sort of maybe shares your worldview and that kind of, sees things reasonably and that kind of thing. But I think most of the time it comes down to that person understanding like, hey, what would the court do in this situation? And that's usually what you're going to get from a parenting coordinator is they're going to try to emulate what they think a court might do in any given situation based on the experience that they've had. Okay. So those are kind of your three routes. One, give in. Two, learn some of these negotiation techniques of getting problem focused, not being too wordy in your responses, not engaging in the argument and that type of thing, and just really getting down to brass tacks of trying to negotiate a solution. Or three, going with a parenting coordinator. And like I said in the beginning, obviously your fallback is you can always go into court, but it's like trying to kill a gnat with a sledgehammer. Sometimes it's just way overkill for some of these smaller issues that really aren't on the court's agenda of things to try to resolve in your case. So if you'd like help learning more how to do number 2, specifically learning how to better negotiate with a narcissistic co-parent, learning different techniques to be successful in that, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's information on that page primarily about my group programs. And if you feel like your case is complex or you are in need of a really high level of support, then it will give you the option to book a call regarding my premium VIP coaching services. And I'd love to chat with you about that. See you guys next time.